right. So mission accomplished, which I'm sure doesn't say anything at all about the politics of the day. Not at all.
Right.
Autobots, transform and roll out!
Mike! So many Mike! So many Mike! So many Mike! So many Mike!
Well, guess what? It's time for another thrilling episode of Two Mikes, Two Furious animated Transformers. I don't know why I was so enthusiastic. I'm like, let's go. Guess what?
No.
It's like I'm not coming off of like a thrilling two-parter or whatever. I guess I'm just that coffee is really hitting my bloodstream. I guess I got some like vitamin water triple X in here. I'm feeling like Vin Diesel. Anyway, super stoked, ready to go. Welcome back for another episode of Two Mikes, Two Furious animated Transformers. We are obviously the podcast where we talk about Transformers animated from two different perspectives. I am your first-time viewer. My name is Mike Seibert, and along with me, my spiritual guide, my spark soul brother, as always, it's Michael Andrews. How we doing, buddy?
Good. Not quite as enthused as you are. I don't know if I can match that energy of my co-host who clearly just got back from a bathroom break at a 1980s nightclub.
Yes, cocaine is a hell of a drug.
But yeah,
gosh.
Doing good. Excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, we are tag team back at it again. We're back at it again. Tag team back again. That's what I was trying to say. We
nailed it.
Thank you. Yeah, it only took me 3 times. I think part of my enthusiasm here is I'm really stoked to talk about the episode that we're going to talk about. Of course, we're talking about Transformers Animated Season 2, Episode 3, overall Episode 19, Mission Accomplished. It's an action-packed show. A lot of cool stuff happened, so I'm really eager to talk about it. But before we get into that, I would like to cede my time to the senator from Naboo. In our previous episode, we heard a lot from me, and I got to wax philosophic about my generation's Legacy United animated universe Optimus Prime figure and his sweet axe. But I thought for this version of Toy Talk, we would kind of get back to some of the roots a little bit and talk about some of the toys for some of these figures that we see prominently in this episode. So Michael Andrews, you had some figures from your collection that you wanted to talk about before we kind of got into the episode proper, right?
Yeah, I did. Just to kind of, I guess spoiler alerts, kind of say goodbye to Ultra Magnus and Sentinel proper. I wanted to talk about my toys. But I just realized this won't be as much of a toy review at all, but I just realized I kind of had like some sentimental value for the toys that of Sentinel and Ultra Magnus for the vintage ones from my early collecting days. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to share that with you. Ultra Magnus was actually my only carryover action figure from my original collection. Actually, it was one of 3 that I managed to save. So I had found it at a very remote Target when I was randomly in northern Minnesota visiting an ex-girlfriend. I was dead broke. I shouldn't have been spending money on anything. I had probably sold most of my other Transformers at this point, but I hadn't seen that action figure. This is back in the time when I, wasn't really like, the internet was only kind of catching on to stuff like this. There wasn't really like Googling,
Yeah.
I guess to go into a little bit, it's kind of like, it's fun. It was fun because you didn't know what toys were coming out. There wasn't like all these like press conferences, and you never know what was going to get an action figure. And all of a sudden, some random background character in something, boom, there was a toy of it. Did you get that? You remember that, Mike? Is that the kind of vibe you had?
You know, my window into that world at that time was Toy Fair magazine, which was kind of like a spin-off offshoot of Wizard magazine. And
yes, I was addicted to that.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Twisted Toy Fair Theater and all of that. So good. So good. I have very fond memories of both Toy Fair and Wizard. It's like you couldn't have been a teenager in the 90s without being into the Wizard magazine publication window into pop culture. That was you talk about like influencing tastes, and it's like, first of all, folks now are like, what's a magazine? But like, this was before social media and Twitter and like, the internet was kind of a thing, but still kind of in its infancy. It's like, you hear tales of kind of like the old guard of Transformers fandom with, messaging groups and Ouija and all of that. But like for folks of us that were just kind of like pop culture fans, that was really kind of our in. So it's like, I remember like the price guides and the countdowns and all of that. In fact, I think that's probably where I first learned about BotCon. Was like,
sure.
and it was so exotic. It was just like, woo, a convention for Transformers, unheard of.
Never go to one of those.
Well, exactly, and now that's all I do. Like Emerald City Comic Con is coming to Seattle, and I'm not going. There's nothing there for me. Whereas I'm gladly going to TFCon LA in early March, the 8th through the 10th, down in Burbank, and it's just interesting how that landscape has changed. But now, we talked so much. I mean, there's no G.I. there's no 80s Toy Boy, there's no BWTF, all of these like, news sites and folks in the fandom that say nothing about like leaks or the TFW 2005 boards or all that. None of that culture that existed then. So there would be times where you would just go into Target and you would get what you would get and you would have no idea what it was. Now there's like, I remember during like the height of like the Ross boom during the holidays, where it's like I was in specific Facebook groups posting Ross finds. It was that specific. It's like, oh man, I found two crashers at a Ross in Seattle. It's like I took one and left the other. That kind of thing. It's like, or like the day I found a Cosmos, it was because two others had been found at different stores geographically in the same place, and I rolled the dice, and sure enough there was a Cosmos there. But it's like that level of granular information that did not exist back in the day. So sorry, I didn't mean to stump all over your thing there, but it's interesting, the availability of information now.
Well, I'm glad you experienced that, because it's crucial to this story, actually, that someone else experienced this, because that's what it was. I walked into that store. It completely wasn't looking for toys. I probably stopped in because I needed a pack of gum or something. Just in quick field trip to the toy aisle. Giant box. The Ultra Magnus figure is huge, and it still actually commands a presence on my shelf over the other Ultra Magnuses. It's a monster. Mm-hmm. And I love it. I no regrets, even though it probably set me back on a couple bills at the time. No regrets. It's an awesome toy. It's got all these little moving pieces, lights, the sound on mine still works, everything like that. And one of my holy grails is they actually repainted that figure as Roadbuster in kind of like the orange and green and browns. I really want to get my hands on that. So I would gladly take it too, because it's just such a cool mold. Yeah. But so that's my Ultra Magnus. Still have my original. My Sentinel, however, is not an original, even though he is quote unquote my favorite character from this for some odd reason. But I did end up selling that at a garage sale because I was moving up northern Minnesota to work at a ski resort. I didn't have much space. I obviously needed the money. And it reminded me of the X that I was visiting when I bought my Ultra Magnus. So, and I've actually a fourth strike because I also thought it was haunted. This is kind of a weird story that, but I used to have like a few Transformers up on a shelf, and I would consistently come home to that one being completely turned and like facing my bed where none of the other toys would be touched. They would just sit there, and I could never figure it out. None of my roommates at the time ever owned up to it, and they would have done something stupid like making it have sex with another action figure, right? Like it would have been something very blunt at the time, but instead it was like always twisted just in a different direction, like facing where I slept. And I think deep down I was weirded out by that, so I didn't have much trouble selling it at the time. But when I went to my very first TFCon Chicago 2014, that was the top of my list to rebuy that one. I really wanted to get that one. And I'll never forget, I walked into the dealer room, which first of all, I was like, holy shit, there's such a thing as a dealer room? Like, that was such a crazy experience for me. I had no idea. I thought it would be at most like going to a garage sale or something.
Yeah,
I
or
never
like a flea
imagined
market or something.
Yeah, I never imagined like rows and rows of like just Transformers for sale. Like I could have anything I wanted at this. But anyway, so I had this list, but I had a shopping list of Transformers I wanted to get, and that was like the top of it. And I'll never forget, because the first one I came across, I should say for context, I also wanted one that was like loose or out of the box, because I wanted to play with it. I wanted to pose it. I wanted to put it on my shelf. I didn't want it in package or anything for collector purposes. But the first one I came across was in the package, and I specifically didn't get it. This is going to blow everyone's freaking mind, because it was autographed by Derek J. Wyatt. And it had a little sketch of Sentinel next to his signature. And at the time, I just wasn't really into signatures, or I wasn't really thinking I wasn't the Derek J. Wyatt fan I was back in the day. But it was a stupid price. I mean, stupidly low for what it was. I mean, it was like, practically shelf, like MSRP.
Retail, yeah.
Joke. But yeah, so I didn't get it because of that. But now I'm kicking myself. Now I sit here and I'm like, oh, why didn't I get that? But I wanted one that I could open. And I thought, in this world I was new to collecting, I was like, I'm never going to have two of a figure. LOL. Now I have tons of two of things.
Right.
But yeah, that one, if that's out there, if someone got that, right into the show and then give it to me, because I really regret that.
Well, two calls to action there. Right into the show and give me your toys. I love it.
Don't make me come and get it after you write into the show. Just give it to me flat outright.
I have a certain set of skills. I will find you. And
yeah. No, but what a cool souvenir for somebody. Derek J. Wyatt autographed Sentinel Prime.
Yeah. Well, and keeping in mind that like time and perspective and context is important in this, in that, like, first of all, like, I mean, you said a moment ago, it's like, well, I don't know why I passed on it. I mean, you had a very good reason. It didn't fit in your collection. It was in a box and it was autographed. Now, I would imagine if it was just in a box and if the price was right, you could just open it and toss the box. But having the autograph on there makes it something else. It's like, well, now I can't just throw this away, even though that's not what I want it for.
Yeah.
And there's kind of a obligation of preservation there. It's like, I've heard the Triple Takeover guys kind of talk about, not necessarily in that context, but like, when they get like something super vintage that's sealed, and the perspective of like, well, do you open it or not? Like, I've told the story about the guy that me and Aaron from APDC met at TFCon LA years ago, 2019, who bought a black Zarek off the show floor, vintage, and it was sealed, and he opened it because he's not a box collector. In fact, like, he and I have had discussions about, it's like, well, why do you got toys in boxes for? It's like they're meant to be played with and all that. And there was an element of danger there too, because that toy is notorious for gold plastic syndrome, GPS. So it's like there was a version of this where he could take it out of the styrofoam, the minty fresh styrofoam, and it just crumbles in his hands. That there's a certain risk in there, but it's like, I've heard on the Triple Takeover podcast, it's like there's it's like for every vintage toy that you open, there's one fewer copy of that sealed version out in the world now. You know, so for like sealed mint and box collectors, you're taking one out of that bin, but at the same time, your collection is your collection. And I don't know if it's just because I'm getting older or wiser, or Hasbro keeps changing their packaging styles, but I find myself playing with my figures way more than I did when I was younger, because like I identify as a box collector. I like the aesthetic of in-package figures, but there is also a perspective of like when you are a mint and box collector, you're more or less just collecting for the next guy or the next person or who ends up with your collection after you're gone or something like that. You know, it's like, so, you know, I have a bookcase full of G.I. Joe Classified series. I've opened over half of them, but there's just as many that I haven't. And I do wonder sometimes, like, you know, I have like the Netflix Soundwave that goes for like triple digits now. I haven't opened it only because I have a second one that I received as a gift. And I opened that one because the package was kind of busted up. So it's like, but I have a bunch of sealed stuff, but it's like, but why? You know, and it's collector angst is probably a different topic for a different day, but it is interesting, like who you're collecting for. Are you collecting for yourself? Are you collecting for somebody else? Are you collecting for the greater good of the fandom or something? You know, it's like there's so more or less like. Let me throw this at you too. If the price was right and it was the only Sentinel, and actually let me tangent a sec. So did you find a loose Sentinel at that TFCon?
Oh, I did. Yeah, I guess buried the lead there. Yeah, I did find my own Sentinel.
Okay, very good. Well, because I was going to say, if like, let's say it gets to be like Deep Sunday and you have the choice between going home empty-handed or taking that box Derek J. Wyatt one, I would think that you would be within your rights to buy that and gasp, throw away the box. Because but it's your toy, it's your collection, and you're buying it for your own purposes. You're not obligated to preserve it. I mean, as gauche as that, or not gauche, but like as abrasive as that might be to say, it's your collection, you know?
Yeah, actually, that's a great point. I'm glad that situation didn't come up, but I will say that the very nature of TFCon made me appreciate more like artists and autographing and in the box collecting. So by actual Sunday, I was a completely changed person about collecting. You know, I thought at the time I didn't care about any of that stuff, and keeping a toy in the box was the stupidest thing you could ever do. And I still feel like that a little bit to some extent. But by the end of that weekend, I had much bigger respect for collectors and the artists and the voice actors and all this that goes into it, and what it probably meant to someone to get that autograph at the time, and what it meant for someone to come across that organically and find that autographed box and be like, oh my God, this is the pinnacle of my collection. I'm so glad I didn't just buy that and tear that open, because the price, again, to reiterate, was that good. I was not scared off by that price at all. I was like, yeah, that's reasonable. Give it here.
Yeah. Well, and that's the other thing too, the perspective of leave one for the next collector. You know, it's like this isn't for my collection, but I'm, you know, it'll be for somebody else. Like, you know, I don't want to necessarily get on a Ross Dress for Less tangent, but it's like I left a couple crashers behind. I left a couple clampdowns behind, you know, or road haulers, or the half dozen Scourge figures that I saw that didn't pick up that I could have picked them up and flipped them. But it's like no, I've gotten everything that my friends are looking for, and I got stuff for myself also. These are for the next collectors that come behind me. It's like, you know, or it's some person that just comes and fills their shopping cart with discounted toys. It's like but that's not for me to police. It's like I don't have the obligation to, you know, rescue discounted toys to make sure that they end up in the hands of collectors. Like I had said something on one of my, I think I had said this to Whirl. Like I think I was part of their Extra Life live stream, and I said something to the effect of like, you know, it would make me happy to hear that a Cosmos just ended up in the hand of some kid. just because like they thought it looked cool. It's like that kind of stuff like kind of actually makes me happy rather than like it was picked up by like some, toy hunter scalper type of person, that kind of thing to, flip it for profits or whatever.
Sure.
Because again, they're kids' toys, and and this is kids programming. So it's cool for us to engage with it as an adults, especially at this granular level that we're doing with this podcast and the show, and and the toys that we enjoy as adults. But I think sometimes as adult collectors, we lose sight of that these are just kids' toys. It's like that. Right. Yeah.
I real quick before we move on, I have kind of a funny story. We were having I believe it was what you'd call a classic Michael birthday, where all my friends were there, and I had quite a few adult beverages by this point. But I had a in the box Armada Unicron that I got for a stupid low price. I was very excited about it, but I'd been saving it till we moved into a new place to open it. But the plan was always to open it. The box was a little wrecked, dinged up. The plastic was completely missing. For all intents and purposes, it was open. My friend, however, who cares nothing about Transformers and is always giving me a hard time about my collection, didn't know that information. So I had invited him up to look at my collection in my new room, my new office area, and he's looking around. He's making the jokes as he does, and then I point to him and I'm like, I've been waiting for this for a long time. It's worth so much money, and I finally got my hands on it. And this is like end of the night. I've had several drinks, and I was like, but you know what? Fuck it. And I just tore it open. I just ripped the packaging off and he's because he's even though he's not a Transformers guy, he's very much like an eBay flipper collector guy, and he just about died when I started tearing into that cardboard. I'll never forget the look on his face.
Oh, that's delightful. That's
it felt great.
That's almost kind of like a Sentinel Optimus type of thing. kind of some of their dynamic here.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Before we transition and kind of jump right in to the episode, I had mentioned, we had mentioned this ended up being like a very TFCon heavy discussion, but I want to remind folks that I'll be at TFCon LA first week of March, but you've been to that TFCon before too, Michael Andrews. I was wondering if you wanted to talk a little bit about some of your memories of TFCon LA.
Oh man, it was a lot of fun. I was out there visiting a friend too that just happened to kind of fall at the same time, so it's a really 2-for-1 deal. But yeah, it was a lot of fun, and it's really great because like a lot of people that wouldn't travel as far for other TF cons, like celebrities and voice actors and stuff, they all come to this because it's just right in their backyard. So there's it was a very condensed, packed weekend. You meet a lot of people, you see a lot of faces. It was very cool.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's coming up on March 8th through 10th. That's at the Los Angeles Marriott Burbank Airport Hotel and Convention Center. That's from their website, tfla.com.
Oh, thank God. I thought you were just riffing that.
No. I was like, he's
good. He is good.
Not a paid endorsement, by the way, but it's just one of those things where it's like, sometimes when you go to places with the express purpose of mingling, you have to tell people where you're going, that kind of thing.
Yes. And that you're able to be mingled with.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm just going as a fan. So yeah, it's just anyway. If you're there and you see me, say hi. It's a fun time.
Yes. And tell him how much you like me on this show, so that he can come back with good news for me.
I would love that. I will probably take my little portable digital recorder with me, and if somebody is willing to talk about Michael Andrews, I will record that and play that in a future
I really
episode.
Want the soundbite of someone being like, "Which mic are you?" "Oh, Seibert." "Ah." Where's the good mic?
Yeah. It's like Power Rangers hat, yes, no. And it's just like, it's the mouthy one. It's the one that doesn't shut up.
The mouthy one.
God.
Oh, the mouthy mic. I love it.
Yeah, mouthy mic. Oh God. That's gotta be a button or a t-shirt
let's get that
or something.
Started.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of getting things started, let's jump right in. We are talking about again, Transformers Animated Season 2, episode 3, overall episode 19, mission accomplished, from May 3rd, 2008. And I know I spent a lot of the last episode talking about the span of time between the episodes. This is just the next week. This is the following week after the return of the headmaster. Mission accomplished was written by Marcia Griffin, who you might remember as penning Megatron Rising Part 1. She's got some other episodes coming up, but so far for the early goings, it's Megatron Rising Part 1, and it's this. And
yeah, she's kind of a bigwig a little bit, or at least becomes one, because she wrote the finale alongside Marty Eisenberg, and then went on to write 7 episodes of Transformers Animated total. But she wrote 41 episodes of Prime, or at least was like a part of the writing process of each of those episodes for Transformers Prime. So that's really cool. And they kind of established sort of a role for her, because after writing the finale of season 1 here in Transformers Animated, she kind of becomes like an opener and closer. She writes part 1 of the season 2 finale, then writes the iconic opening of season 3, which I know we haven't got to, but then she wrote the finale of season 3 as well. So that became kind of her business a little bit.
Interesting. Yeah, kind of the like you said, kind of like the opener and closer. Yeah. Very interesting. So this episode, so it literally just jumps right in. It's like I was trying to figure out a way to transition into the action, but there kind of isn't, because it's like boom, just like right there, face first into the action. And I was kind of put on my heels a little bit, kind of like, unbalanced by just seeing right off the bat, it's freaking Ironhide. Ironhide himself.
Yeah.
In distress even.
Ironhide to Ultra Magnus! We are under attack by Decepticon forces!
Very first shot of the whole show, right, is just a close-up of Ironhide. It's crazy to see. Well, for all like the circumstance that they give character reveals, this one was just boop, tune right in, just bam. Like it was jarring how sudden it was. So he is sending a distress signal. Basically, they're under attack from the Decepticons. Apparently, right, like it's happening behind him. Like he's right in the middle of it. You could see it. I didn't necessarily look closely enough to see if there's little cameos or anything back there. Like I think it's too staticky or whatever, but I wonder if there's characters getting cut down or something like that. I'm not sure. But he says that they've already lost one space bridge and that they need backup. So he's pleading to Ultra Magnus to send backup. And the first thing I wondered, as I get over the initial shock, it's like, is this the quote unquote urgent matters that Ultra Magnus kept talking about in the previous 2 episodes? Is this like the urgent matters that Sentinel kept talking about that Ultra Magnus was too busy to attend the press conference? I thought initially that it was just bureaucratical bullshit. Like, Ultra Magnus doesn't have time to deal with these puny humans, and I mean, who are basically germs at this point. The Magnus doesn't have time to deal with germs in lower life forms. Whatever. Yeah. But it turns out maybe there is something to it the whole time. Right. Well, either way, things have gotten bad fast, I think, is the take-up of this, because right after we talked to Ironhide, Ultra Magnus admits that they've been getting calls like this across the galaxy, right? Like this is not just an isolated incident. This is happening all over. And I just wrote, like, literally, what the hell? Things have gotten so bad so fast, very rough. And before we get off Ironhide, I just want to talk about his voice for a second. He was voiced by Corey Burton, which is cool. Oh, cool. Yeah, so we got another voice for Corey Burton, who also does Megatron and Ratchet. And I also think that's kind of interesting, because I was thinking about it when I saw that he voiced this character too. Like, probably the most powerful, kind of heartfelt performances of all of season 1 were from both Megatron and Ratchet. Megatron had these long soliloquies and, played Isaac Sumdac like a fiddle. And then, Ratchet has like these great moments with Sorry where he admits that, in the Deep Hurting episode, like really, let's get into it. So Corey Burton's really showing a lot of chops here. And I don't know if he was just conveniently to have on hand to voice Ironhide, or if they said, hey, we got a bot in distress here. Who's our guy for distressed robots?
Yeah.
Corey Burton.
Well, and it's interesting because, like, what do you make of this voice? Because it's not... is it too much of a stretch for me to think that this is somewhere in between G1 and the movie? Or the live action movie, because I don't remember who voices live action Ironhide, but he's basically doing a tough guy, Dirty Harry riff, which I've grown to like and appreciate. It's like, you can have different iterations of the characters. You can be a hot tempered, gun-toting, thirst for violence guy, and you can also be a Southern fried van. And it's all the with folksy wisdom and stuff, kind of cup before cup. Ironhide was always in G1, he was always kind of like the elder statesman type of thing, like, seen everything and had just kind of like this just kind of like Southern easiness to him. And for the brief time that we hear Ironhide speak as voiced by Corey Burton, that's the way I took it. It's like he's not doing a Peter Cullen. He's like, every time I look into a monitor, Prime, he's nobody's talking about busting Deceptichops.
Right.
There's no maybe in it. It's like, hey, Ironhide, are you guys in trouble? Maybe. There's none of that, but it's also not as it's a little more vulnerable than steely, cool, Dirty Harry live action Ironhide. What say you?
Yeah, I agree. Definitely kind of falls in between those two. And I think we can't ever forget that this show is hot on the tails of the live action movie and is supposed to invoke it. And I think there must have just been some sort of like, I really want to be in those like writer rooms where they're talking about like, this needs to be just like the new live action stuff because this is Transformers now. And at the same time, you have all these old school folks that have written for 80s things, and probably their Transformers is the 80s Transformers, and somehow they need to kind of mash it together. And I think this is like a really good example of that. It visually, it's the old Ironhide. It's not the movie live action movie Ironhide. And the voice is just kind of in between. There's a little bit of a twang, but not as far as the Peter Cullen one.
Right. And he's very red. And he's got the mohawk. So it's like, it's an interesting choice. And I don't know. I would like to one of these times really try to like see if we can pull apart the brand synergy that's going on here, because like you said, with TFA being out in summer of 2008, we're almost a year away from the first live action movie, and we're about a year before the next live action movie. So it's almost like Hasbro doesn't quite know what they want to do from like a brand synergy standpoint. Like in a sense, these should almost I mean, granted, we have 2024 hindsight, but it's like either do cartoon versions of the 2007 cast, or you do the G1 cast. And the fact that it does neither is I mean, well, that's why we're doing this podcast, but that's what makes TFA so interesting, and it makes it especially fascinating as like a historical document of like, it's like, this is what Hasbro was doing in 2008, and it's interesting the choices that they make. Like, we already litigated the throwing in Alita 1 randomly as an origin story for Black Arachnia, that kind of weird stuff. It's like, so I don't know if we see Ironhide ever again. It's like, maybe this is just like a one and done cameo, but it is also, I think it is more impactful that it's a legacy character as opposed to just some nobody also.
Right.
Kind of like the Alita 1 thing. In a way.
I'd love to, like you said, I'd love to get in the heads of where they were at this time.
Mm-hmm.
But back in the show, this is just another, as I said, voicemail clogging up Ultra Magnus's inbox because it's just going on all over the galaxy. But it's actually kind of a big kind of plot shakeup, because now where we were struggling to prove that Decepticons existed, now they're coming out of the woodwork all over the galaxy, emboldened by the rumors of Megatron's return. Mm-hmm. And this is where we get into some interesting plotting, because Sentinel implies that the rumors that came from Optimus. And so, whereas I always thought this would kind of go like, once they saw a Decepticon or heard about a Decepticon or had visual or at least credible evidence of a Decepticon, that'd be it. It would change the whole tone of Ultra Magnus and Sentinel. But they go the other route. They're like, we need you to go on a press conference and deny all this. We need to squash these rumors. And it's really interesting because I can see it from one hand that they need to like stop this, any sort of like fear-based retaliation going on in the galaxy. Yeah. But at the same time, like, these are the leaders and they're asking Optimus to now lie.
Yeah, well, and there's so much in the dynamic here. Like, it's even referred to as a Decepticon uprising, and like you said, like, embolden the enemies from the rumors. But Sentinel, the flat earther that he is, the fucking anti-vaxxer that he is, he still believes that Decepticons aren't real. And I mean, like, how far does it go? Like, I found myself, even through this episode, through the entirety of the trajectory of it, and I think they were doing it intentionally, but I found myself incredibly frustrated by Sentinel being so obstinate. And what I couldn't get a finger on is how much of that Ultra Magnus believes. Like, sure, he's getting his inbox is overflowing with these attacks, but like, even in the Ironhide message, you don't actually see a Decepticon. So right. It's Ultra Magnus and kind of the Autobot Elite Guard. Like, again, I feel like, and again, I don't remember what IDW Comics was doing at this time, but this feels like shades of the apathetic Senate as well, and it's like, this is kind of like a precursor to more postmodern storytelling, where like the Autobots are not necessarily always the good guys that they're supposed to be. Like, when the world gets a little more gray and a little less black and white, and suddenly Megatron isn't the villain that we think he is. He's a sympathetic character and all of that other stuff. But I feel like this is kind of like a precursor to that in a way, because they're being the government and kind of trying to control the flow of information and not wanting a panic. But it's more than that, because like this whole dialogue between Optimus and Sentinel and Ultra Magnus, where they're talking about Optimus says something to the effect of like, he feels like that information should be out there, and or he should tell his side, and Magnus says something like,
more like an opportunity to set the record straight. If word gets out that Megatron is still online and the Allspark is destroyed, it will create panic among our fellow Autobots and embolden the enemy. You'll
get your chance at the inquiry. And Optimus sniffs this out. He's like, you mean court-martial, basically. And like, so I don't entirely understand the power structure of the Autobot High Command. Could it be that they are on shaky ground with a tenuous grip of power on Cybertron? Maybe like even the rumors of Megatron returning is enough to upset the apple cart that much. It's we start off this episode from an incredibly fascinating, story-rich perspective.
Right. Or is it just that Ultra Magnus, he's been upper management so long, he doesn't want to get his hands dirty, right? Like, it's not about stopping the actual problem. It's how do we spin this?
Yeah. Well, he read his own book too many times. You can deal with this, or how to deal with this. And it's all just about like apathy and sweeping it under the rug. Because, I mean, remember our characterization of Ultra Magnus in this context. He's the High Father, he's Odin. And with that becomes a apathy and detachment. So they're even like when he's listening to Ironhide beg for reinforcements, there is kind of a lack of concern from Ultra Magnus, and like you were saying, it's like it seems more we're interested in not causing a panic and suppressing the flow of information.
Yeah, unfortunately, that was a little too real, especially through today's lens.
I tell you what, man, this journey that we've been on, and there's been a couple times where it's actually like activated stuff in me where I'm just like, I shouldn't be feeling all of this stuff discussing a cartoon from 2008, but
seriously.
But it does remind me, though, it's like, what was happening in 2008? Why was this episode called Mission Accomplished? It's like, if we're not taking swipes at the George W. Bush era, then what are we doing? And so, the terrifying thing about history is that it's cyclical and it does repeat, and it is terrifying where our world is today here in 2024 when refracted through the prism of what was going on in 2008.
Yeah, that's scary. Okay, let's stop that.
Yep.
No, forget it. Back to the show. I mean, whatever his motivations may be, Ultra Magnus orders Optimus and his crew back to Cybertron for the inquiry, court-martial, whatever you want to call it. Of course, Optimus wants to stay, but Ultra Magnus doesn't believe the Decepticons on Earth are a problem. I mean, if he doesn't believe it's a problem anywhere in the galaxy, he certainly doesn't believe it's a problem on Earth, so he's not going for it. He tells them to pack their things.
Grab your torches, head back to camp.
Yeah, exactly. At the very least, they want him to play PR, do a little PR work, and lie about Megatron's return. But anyway, so that lot is cast. And poor Sari, as if she hasn't been through enough. Now we didn't even think she had anything left to lose. Now she's losing her only friend's family, I guess, at this point, as the Autobots gear up for their departure.
Yeah, and this scene is especially heartbreaking because, like, we've seen something like this before when it was prior to the finale, where it's like, okay, we need to get the Allspark off of the Earth, and that's the only way to keep the Decepticons from getting it. And it's like, and it's played for a joke. It's like, oh, well, Sorry will take it pretty well. Smash cut to Sorry not taking it famously not very well. This is different. This has a very different tone. She's not cartoonishly crying. She's just defeated.
First I lose my dad, and now you guys?
I'm afraid orders are orders.
Well, they're stupid orders.
And but I would also say, though, there's a wisdom, I guess, or a knowingness in the performance as well, because like even like Optimus is like, orders are orders, but like Sari seems to understand in a way that she didn't previously. Like, she's devastated, obviously, but there is a jaded knowingness. Like this isn't her first dance with potentially losing her friends, which makes it all the more heartbreaking. Yeah.
She's definitely aging rapidly. She's wise beyond her 8 years now at this point, for better or worse. So, and then there's this great scene between Sentinel and Optimus. It's a real roller coaster back and forth. I think this is one thing this episode does really well. It balances action with these great like character moments, and this is definitely one of them. This conversation where Sentinel is trying to pitch it that he's doing a favor for Optimus to repay him for the headmaster incident, but in that same breath, he pretty much puts him under protective custody. I mean, he's basically putting him under arrest up until the launch time. And it's such a weird scene because it just goes from them like almost being buddies again, where we saw them at the end of the last episode, to antagonists to each other, to kind of back again. It's a really great scene between the two of them.
Well, and then there's some uncomfortable conscription talk here too, because it's like the other bots are like, hey man, we're just like, repair bots, and Sentinel's like,
As of now, you're all vital components in the war against the Decepticons.
no, you're soldiers now. And it's like, now being repair bots, we need you guys on the front lines repairing those space bridges now more than ever. It's gone from being grunt work to being essential, important work. And I think that's interesting from a couple different perspectives, but it's kind of like, yeah, you guys used to be the dregs, but now we actually need you, and you don't have a choice because you're part of the military now. That's, again, frightening stuff from a certain point of view.
Yeah, and as serious as this scene is, I did sort of get big Tom Hanks in the Burbs energy off of Sentinel, because he can't really put Optimus under arrest. He can only put him under protective custody at best. Protective custody in big quotes.
Yeah.
But it totally reminded me of the scene in the Burbs with the citizen's arrest when Tom Hanks tries to arrest his neighbor.
Citizens arrest! Citizens arrest! I, Greg Pearson, am placing you under citizen's arrest for my attempted murder.
The man doesn't know what he's talking about. Citizen's arrest. Citizen's arrest. Don't start with me, Carol.
That is Sentinel in a nutshell, really.
Well, and you even get a thing here where, and it ends up, it's been a while since we've evoked the perspective of nothing is wasted and everything comes back around. You're introduced to the concept of the, what are these Energon cuffs called? Like stasis cuffs. That's what I was going to say, stasis binders, but, which is probably just as cool too. But like that's a thing that continues throughout this episode, but it's like more or less like, don't make me use the cuffs on you. He seems all too eager, Sentinel does, to get these stasis cuffs on Optimus, and again earlier in the scene, it's like this whole continuing the legislation about like Optimus is like, well, not only do you want me to lie about what's happening, but you want me to take the fall also. It's like that he's Optimus sees that he's really being set up to be the patsy for all of this, which again is terrifying.
Yeah, absolutely. So while all this is happening, we cut to a garbage skiff floating down the river, and who should burst out of it like he just woke up? Mr. Starscream, Esquire the Third, busts out of this garbage. He's intact, and wouldn't you know it, he's pissed at Megatron. It's his very first waking thought. He's mad at Megatron.
You dare strike me, Megatron? After all my loyal stellar cycles of... wait... Where is everybody?
Yeah, I just love it. And again, spoilers alerts for the rest of the episode. I love that this ongoing motif of him just springing up, guns at the ready.
Yeah.
He's just like, wait, how did I get here? What is happening? And he's like, oh, well, revenge.
Yeah.
It's like, at first, he doesn't give any consideration to his situation. He only wants revenge.
Right, absolutely. It's a very interesting driving point for this version of Starscream. But in the theme of nothing is wasted, he makes a point to say he detects no Decepticon signatures, and he takes to the sky in a fit of angsty rage because of this. And even meanwhile, though, we get our answer right away, because Lugnut and Blitzwing are back at the makeshift Decepticon lair, expounding the virtues of the new signal dampeners designed by Isaac Sumdac. And this is interesting because Isaac Sumdac did the thing that he was supposed to do. I guess I wanted a little bit, spoiler alert, this doesn't happen, but as I was watching the episode a second time, I wanted this signal dampener that Isaac Sumdac designed to fail, maybe like a timeout. Like, it works for a little bit and then it doesn't work, and reveals their presence. But nope, he made a perfect spy tool for the Decepticons, apparently.
It works very well. And it's interesting how complementary Megatron is. Like, at this point, I feel like there's a little less menace, and he's almost treating Isaac Sumdac like a beloved pet. He's like, complimenting. He's like, great job on your new project. He's like, Now I need you to do something else. Now I need you to make
a subspace communicator that will allow me to contact my Decepticon forces at the rim of the galaxy.
Again, I think that, oh man, we talk about conflicting management styles. Is animated Megatron secretly a good manager? Because like he's empowering, he sees skills in Isaac Sumdac that he himself doesn't even see, and like nurtures that, and I mean, granted, forcefully, but still, it's like, oh yeah, no, you could totally make a subspace communicator because I need to talk to the Decepticons and these random acts of sabotage and whatnot. This very interesting dynamics here.
Yeah, well, this whole scene is fascinating to me because on the eve of Sumdac finally coming through and designing something that disguises the Decepticons, their whole goal, stay hidden, build this thing for us to mask our signatures. On the eve of that, Megatron now wants the opposite. He wants to make it known that he's back. He's sort of like giving into that, what else do people like about me? People are rising up in the galaxy, and he wants to get his voice out there. So now, right after being like, hey, can you design something that keeps me super, super quiet? He's like, boy, can you just yell my name into the galaxy? And then I also think it's fascinating because Isaac Sumdac says,
subspace communication would require some form of tachyon energy. No Earth scientist has gotten past the development stage yet.
And Megatron, coming off of all this praising that he did of Isaac Sumdac, in the same breath, insults human scientists. He's like,
then it's fortunate we do not have to rely on the feeble achievements of mere humans, isn't it?
The germs that are human scientists, we can go take what we need from the elite guard before they leave town.
Yeah.
What a roller coaster right after a roller coaster.
Absolutely. I mean, this episode is kind of intense, but yeah, like, so the tension is immediately subverted because we go back to the base and we realize that if the Autobots need to leave, well, now that thanks to Porter C. Powell and his machinations, Sari is now homeless. So yeah. We can't just leave her. So we got to make sure that she's taken care of. But who could take care of their little human friend?
Well, I can't think of anybody except for Captain Fanzone, apparently.
Smash cut to outside his stoop, his apartment or brownstone or whatever it is, wearing this robe. It's like, what is happening?
Right. I would have loved if there would have been like a little embroidered, like the Ghostbuster No logo over the word machines, or like God, maybe in like a beautiful cursive, like this is why I hate machines. Something like that would have been a nice little touch.
I love this entire dialogue because it's one of those things where it's like you almost have to listen to it carefully for how deft the wordplay is. So Captain Fanzone is like, it's like, hey, why me? But Bumblebee, full of cheer, says,
you're tops on the list of all the humans we know personally.
And that's all it is. He's at the top of the list of humans that they know. And right. Bulkhead interjects and says, it's a short list, and Prowl gets in on the action as well. And I love that we get name drops for like the two baddest human supervillains, Prometheus Black and Nanosec, but Bumblebee here with the gigantic thumbs up with like the glint on it and everything.
But still, you're number one.
Man, what so much fun. I would like to see like a third-party upgrade kit for the new animated Bumblebee figure where it's just literally like a giant, like a double-sized thumb. Where it's just like, it's like, because like I happen to be looking at the screen grab of it now, and it's just like, it's pronounced and it's big and it is just hilarious. And it kind of reminds me, we haven't talked about this for a while, but what happened to Mrs. Fanzone? Is there a Mrs. Fanzone? Because
right. The mystery continues, right? Because we don't see her.
Nope.
We just see Fanzone outside of his bachelor pad. It's a very much, you can't even come in here.
Yeah, right.
But funny as this scene is, I do think it's very sweet that this is the number one priority of the Autobots before they go, is finding someone to take care of Sari. This could have smash cut to a billion other different scenes and iterations, but they're like, I love that they're like, we have to take care of Sari, because yeah, she's going to be completely homeless, friendless, familyless now that they're leaving.
Mm-hmm.
So on board the Elite Guard ship, cut across town, Sentinel continues bickering with Optimus about the lies he's going to tell at his public appearance. That, to reiterate, if it wasn't clear enough, there are no Decepticons on Earth, and definitely not Megatron, if that's what you're thinking. They're really beating this home. They're really doing something creepy, which is like trying to convince Optimus of it, right? Like I feel like they keep bringing this up because they're like trying to incept him that this is his idea.
Well, and it's the thing also where it's like some serious gaslighting here, where it's like, no, you're not gonna lie, you're just gonna confirm the scans, and the scans say that there's no Decepticons, ergo no Decepticons. There's nothing to lie about.
Yeah,
all you gotta say is what the scans already have.
Just disgusting.
Yeah, exactly.
As this conversation is taking place,
literally,
love these cuts. Blitzwing and Lugnut appear right under the ship, like literally right under their noses, to steal the tachyon transmitter. And they disappear just as quickly, so I guess the dampeners are working.
Presumably because they are indeed victorious in their mission. Mission accomplished, the title of the episode.
Yeah, I really like this scene. I really think it's cool. I like the scene when the two jets launch out of the hole in the ground. This animation was used a couple times in this episode. This going, like the camera's following them down this cavern. I thought it was a really cool animation style, but I wasn't really sure why they did it. I guess I originally thought, because they popped out of the ground to start, I thought they were jumping back in the hole to just go back the way they came, but they almost used it as like a runway to like get a bigger launch up and out. But I couldn't figure out, did I miss something? Was there some reason they jumped in the hole first to take off?
I guess I didn't watch it that closely. I guess in show it's probably just to get another bit of sweet animation in, because it looks cool. Like
super cool.
I love a good runway jet takeoff type of sequence. And so I would imagine it's because this animation no doubt will be recycled. Because like some of like the more better iconic ones, they're probably going to use versions of this shot again, I would guess. But yeah, I think unfortunately in this case, it's probably just because it looks cool. I can't think of a practical application for it. Keeping in mind the geography of the cave is still a little unclear also, like in terms of like where they're coming from, where they're going, and how everything relates to each other in space.
Yeah. Well, either way, it was a cool scene, and it adds a little bit of like physics to the world, right? Like this sort of like they needed to get a little boost. They need a little runway to take off. There was something very real and visceral about that. Yeah. It also presented an opportunity for Starscream to watch them take off from behind a floating billboard straight out of Blade Runner, is what I wrote down. Like there's something very like futuristic about it. So he's like, I love this like Starscream that's just hanging on like this floating blimp. Like, what are they doing?
Yeah. And it's interesting because like, as it'll be kind of asked and answered in due course very quickly here, but in my first time watcher brain, I don't know what Starscream's deal is. You know, is he a ghost? Can people see him? Can he interact with others? You know, so there, I delighted in having that uncertainty at this point in the story, not knowing exactly, and that's a thing that even kind of continues up until this this reveal coming up. Because even like when they're back at the cave and it's, you know, Blitzwing and Lugnut have returned. They have they've got the unobtainium that they need to power the carbandium synthesizer or whatever they need. But like the way that Starscream slow rolls to them it's almost like you would think if they could see him that they would have seen him prior to that. Like, it's not until he's right up on them and interacting with them do they see that it's actually Starscream. So I thought, again, for my first time viewer brain, that it's like, is Starscream an intangible ghost? What is this? And in my brain, I was like, is Starscream going to be surprised by this? Like, why can't they see me? Can they not see me? That kind of thing. And, obviously it goes a completely different way, but it was, I wanted to share that from like my first time viewer, but then two G1er, like, knowing what the ghost of Starscream is, that kind of thing.
Yeah, well, I was going to say it's really smart that they played off that because they're playing off a couple things, right? They're playing off of the Starscream's ghost story that's been done at this point in the 80s series and in Beast Wars. So it's kind of, they're having a little bit of fun. Like, this could easily be another a notch in your G1 score, an Easter egg for the 80s series, but they're playing off of it. And he even, when he finally does reveal himself, he says, "Were you expecting a ghost?" Like, it's like they know the kind of fun they're having.
What's the matter? You look like you've seen a ghost.
I cackled at that, by the way.
Yeah,
cackled.
Great. And they started it too with, the hand bursting out of the ground type of a thing. Like there is a motif of like, hey, he's dead. And we're right on, we're 10 years out probably from the reveal of The Sixth Sense too. So we're all expecting it. And then they subvert the expectations.
Yeah. I love it.
It's all in there. But yeah, as we've been saying, Starscream follows him back to the underground cavern and clocks right back in at his number one full-time job, antagonizing Megatron. Good to see him back at work. They duke it out, and it's a cool scene. This is where shit gets pretty real, if I may, because they duke it out. Megatron puts him down with a huge, like, anime kill shot with this great line, by the way. You couldn't lead a parade. Love it. And I love the delivery of it.
When I was a young boy, my father took me into the city to see a marching band.
Yeah, it's great, and it kind of harkens back to G1 a little bit, like when in the pilot episode, Starscream tries to take a poke at Megatron, and he just like shoots him or something like that. And the line here, and it's actually one of my favorite Transformers lines. He starts by saying that so Starscream rolls up to him and he's like, man, we need action, not words. Let's go, take the energy from this rocket base or whatever. I should be in charge. And Megatron shines him on. He's like, you couldn't lead ant droids to a picnic. What makes you think you could lead the Decepticons? And G1 Megatron gives this line here that I will never forget. It's one of my favorite lines. He's like,
power flows to the one who knows how. Desire alone is not enough.
Whoa.
And I always like that. And this is from like episode 1 of G1. So it puts off the difference in style from Megatron and Starscream. So I like when he says you couldn't even lead a parade.
When I was a young boy.
I feel like that really evokes the spirit of that exchange from the G1 episode, even if it's not line for line. Like, you could say things that are similar, that remind you of the old thing, without actually having to do the thing, because if he had said,
you couldn't lead androids to a picnic, how can you pretend to lead the Decepticons?
In 2008, that's pretty silly. If this version of Megatron said that, it's very silly. But, you
couldn't lead a parade.
As he cuts this dude down with his sword, it's metal as fuck. It's great. And I love that, like, his sword is just sitting there casually, and he just casually grabs it and goes for this kill strike here. I love an idea that he has like a master sword just sitting around.
Right. Just posing with it and whatnot.
Yeah, exactly. And from here, this kind of kicks off what I think is both the darkest and most hilarious recurring jokes I've ever seen in a Transformers show. Again, a show for children. But basically, like, he tells his goons, he's like, yeah, man, just throw him off the side and make sure he's offline this time. And we see this motif again and again and again, where they're just chucking him off the side. And it's like, how dark is that? It's like you're literally throwing his lifeless body off the cliff. And it's shown that he is killed again and again and again.
Right.
That is.
They make a point. This is why this scene's so dark. Is they make a point to be like, that was a killing blow. Starscream is dead. Lugnut checks his body, sees that his spark chamber is embered. That's just like being like, yep, he doesn't have a heart anymore, or yep, we saw his soul leave his body. Like this, like Starscream is dead. So
like actually dead.
Yeah. So they throw him over the edge. Into the river, and the body lies in the river a moment. We get just a second to maybe think, oh my gosh, is he actually dead? And then he comes back online. You know, we sort of get a sound that's almost like a dial-up internet coming online.
Yeah, a little bit.
Prepare to face the wrath of... What am I doing down here?
And he pops up, but this is a fucked up scene, pardon my French. Yeah. He looks down and sees his spark chamber is empty. Can you imagine like the human equivalent of this? Like it's like it really reminded me of like a war scene where like someone looks down and they see themselves bleeding out, or like a gaping hole in their chest or something. And he's just like, oh, yep, I guess I'm dead. I guess maybe that's just like the Transformer lifestyle, right? Like you're made of metal and parts and robotics. That kind of stuff happens.
Well, and he seems to have a very casual relationship with his own mortality. Now, maybe it's him coping, but like he even says here, he's like, shrug.
Maybe I really am a ghost.
You know, that kind of thing. It's like, so he doesn't really process his situation in the way the rest of us have, you know, and even to the effect of like, I mean, I think this is the first time, but like as this montage goes on, which again, I really love it. I love this recurring joke, but because it's in montage, there really isn't a moment of, wow, Starscream, how are you back again? They don't seem to care. Megatron doesn't seem to care. You know, he doesn't care why Starscream is back from the dead again and again. He just wants to finish him off again and again.
Right.
And you get this recurring joke of him, Lugnut and Blitzwing just throwing his lifeless body down the same ravine into the same river, and he pops back up guns blazing. It reminds me, it's a couple few things, but one, the first thing I thought of, specifically with Starscream popping up with his guns out, it kind of gives me some live, die, repeat, Edge of Tomorrow things vibes.
Yes, I said Groundhog's Day, but yeah, same diff.
Oh, same different. Yeah, exactly. And it's like there's a part that like how much does he retain?
Oh yeah, right. Well, let's back up for just a second here. So we got a couple things we got to talk about here. So
sure, please.
So the first time he wakes up at the bottom of this ravine, he posits that something else must be keeping him online. But sure enough, after taking a Zoolander-esque gaze into the river, he sees a fragment of the Allspark wedged in his head. And he's actually, and then he goes right from being like how fucked up it is that Megatron succeeded in killing Starscream to he's super stoked that he's immortal now and gets to go after Megatron so hard. And this montage is super cool, super brilliant, because it's all taking place in the speech that Megatron is sending out to the galaxy using the tachyon transmitter. So the whole time you're getting this voiceover of this, you know, spooky dictator-like speech from Megatron with this montage of Starscream like trying to kill him again and again and just dying again and again.
Mm-hmm.
And it's great. I mean, you actually see him die 3 more times. I counted. And there's a cool sword fight. There's this really beautiful shot I wanted to talk about. Is the last one where Megatron's standing on like a cliff edge, looking up at the full moon over New Detroit.
Yeah.
Starscream sneaks up with a grenade and chucks it at him, and Megatron does the no look catch behind his head and just chucks it back. And I loved it. The whole thing was just so well done.
Yeah, everything is great, and it's interesting because we've talked about like different dynamics, and I had mentioned that animated Megatron gets to do what no other Megatron has done and actually kill Starscream. Now,
totally,
he gets to do it again and again. Imagine the delight of G1 Megatron being able to do that to his Starscream over and over like that. So it's, and I had mentioned something earlier about retention because I think Starscream has to retain something. So it has to be a Groundhog Day, Edge of Tomorrow situation because at a certain point he has the self-awareness to be like, maybe I need a different approach because he realizes that going after Megatron mano a mano time after time just is not working.
Yeah, absolutely. I also wanted to say, Mike, because it's one of our favorite lines, when the Megatron's message goes out to the galaxy, I couldn't help but think, the dead speak.
Somehow Palpatine returned.
Oh my gosh, yes.
So I know we cherish that little bit of the crawl from Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah. The Rise of the Skywalker.
Yeah.
The dead speak, exclamation point. It's been a while since I've dropped that on folks' cash. I was just like, I remember at the time being like obnoxious. I'm like, the dead speak. just literally just like, well done.
So great.
Thanks, buddy.
You bet.
So Starscream says that he needs another approach, and he looks at this garbage truck, tow truck, some kind of truck, but the truck has a fragment of the Allspark in it, a larger one than the one that he discovers in his head, and that's where we cut back to the Elite Guard back on their ship.
Right. They've detected an Allspark energy flux, which Ultra Magnus just pounces all over. He and Jazz, basically, there's a quick conjecture about it, and then he and Jazz transform and roll out.
Literally, get an Ultra Magnus transform and roll out, which I was particularly happy about.
Yeah, I do like that.
Transform and roll out.
Meanwhile, Sentinel's lamenting that he's stuck babysitting Optimus, the insubordinates. Good. I do like this because finally we're seeing some payoff for Jazz, who's clearly the more capable agent here. Sentinel's just screwed up too many times. He's like, I'm taking Jazz.
Yeah.
I pick Jazz. Jazz.
Always Jazz.
Right. But Optimus, ever the detective, looks at this situation and sees that the shard is embedded in a speeding bullet train. Something's not right. They haven't been able to detect these shards before. Only Sari's key can do that. So why are they detecting it now? Why is it just out for everyone to detect? It's almost like it wants to be detected. So Optimus does this this reminded me of the movie Nope. He scans a nearby cloud and he finds Starscream in stealth mode. And it reminded me of in Nope when they're like, that cloud hasn't moved.
Right.
Yeah. So they find out it's Starscream in stealth mode. And then cool, badass Optimus does this cool thing where he pisses off Sentinel just enough that the oaf basically stasis cuffs himself.
Yep.
And Optimus just well, you did it to yourself. Bye, buddy. And rolls out to stop Ultra Magnus from making, quote unquote, a deadly mistake.
Absolutely. Well, and it underscores here, I had mentioned up top that there were aspects that I found myself frustrated at. There's a point where stealth mode Starscream is on the screen behind Sentinel's head, and he's still talking about you're full of shit, Optimus. There's no Decepticons. How many times do I have to tell you there are no Decepticons? And it's like I can't. prior to 2020, I wouldn't have believed that a person could be so willfully ignorant, but that is not the world that we live in today in 2024. But like, that's, I was getting very annoyed and furious by Sentinels. Just like, it's like, turn around. He's on the screen, literally right there to be seen.
Yeah. That
even though he's still,
definitely was not an animation flub. That was like, look at this blind idiot that can't see what's happening right in front of him.
Right.
Yeah, I love that. Love that little nod. Then we cut to a great scene. I love this. I love everything about this scene. We cut to a playground across town where Sari... Let me set the stage a little bit. Sari and Fanzone are sitting on a swing set together, and Sari is talking the logistics of what it would be like for her to be taken care of. Where am I going to sleep? What am I going to eat? And apparently the breaking point is when she brings up her allowance.
Oh yeah, and we should talk about my allowance because I'm going to need a big one.
Because that's when the swing set breaks and Fanzone just crumples to the ground. Hilarious. This scene's hilarious.
It's great. And we get a couple sorry tropes here. She's like talking about like bedtimes. She's like, I'm not a fan of that. And you get, like you said, you get the allowance legislation, and he's like, this is why I hate kids.
Well, Sari's a businesswoman now, right? She's ran a company for a little bit. She's engaging in negotiations with her new guardian here. Apparently, I just think it's so interesting that Fanzone went in for this at all. The fact that he's sitting on a swing set listening to this 8-year-old girl tell her what she wants to be taken care of, like, it cracks me up. It cracks me up that he's even in this. He's let himself get in this situation at all.
Yeah, to even entertain the notion, because he doesn't owe anybody anything. And not to put too fine a point on it, but like, doesn't he have work? Doesn't he have a job?
Yeah. This world where I never thought I'd see him sitting on the swing set, but it sort of adds something like cute to his character. Or like I'm a little more charmed by Fanzone now that he's like willing to entertain this and even sit with this girl on the swing set.
Softens him up a little bit for sure.
Absolutely. And there's something very like Dennis the Menace and Mr. Wilson about this too.
A little bit.
I really got that vibe from it.
And I kind of like how this scene kind of ends and plays out, because like there's this whole dialogue about like, oh man, we need to go to this bullet train, we need to help out, Ultra Magnus and Jazz are walking into a trap, we have to we have to help them out and all of that. But there's something to the effect here, I forget who says it, but it's like doing what's right is more important.
Oh yeah.
That
who was that?
I don't remember. I wrote it down without attribution.
Well, the point is the same. It's a good sentiment. I also want to say too, this is where I busted the biggest gut at this scene, is that like this whole like playground scene is panning out and the Autobots are just standing there watching it like creeps. Like they're just standing there like do the thing, be the good parent, play with her.
And Fanzone reluctantly goes along with the Autobots, and it's something to the effect of like,
but I am not gonna let him wreck my city again.
Yeah, and that actually fits. That's something we saw a couple episodes ago now, that he's really worried about their destruction and what they've done.
And from there, we cut across town and into the last act of this episode, and this is all action all the time, and it just doesn't let up. I really enjoy this entire sequence as it plays out.
Yeah. We cut to outside of town, and apparently way outside. It's like they're in a desert or something.
Yeah.
So we see the speeding bullet train, and it becomes clear the original mark for the trap detects the Allspark fragment. High above, Starscream watches and waits, but not higher than Megatron, who truly sees all in classic Megatron fashion.
Yep.
And what he sees in this moment is all the Autobots cruising alongside the train. And this is what I love about this Megatron. We've talked about this before, but that should have been pretty clear that it was the elite guard setting the trap. I mean, to see that it was a trap, is very smart. But B, then he ignores the evidence that the Autobots are right there. And he remembers, like, hasn't somebody else been trying to kill prank me all day? Like,
right. He's like, wait a second.
Yeah. So there's here, and he just peels them all back in an instant. He gets what's happening immediately.
Yeah. Yeah. Animated Megatron is no dum-dum. He is a tactical genius, and he is lethal as he is capable. Again, love this guy.
I think it really goes, gives credit to the writers for not even letting him fall for this for a second. He figures it out right away. So Jazz and Ultra Magnus transform. They're on the train. They see the fragment. They're trying to get it out. Jazz tries his laser chucks on the fragment. It doesn't budge. And in steps Grandpa Magnus, about to tee off with his driver. A little bit of overkill, maybe. He takes a whack at it, and it doesn't work. I really think this is a great use of the well, it's not a great use of the hammer, but it's a great use visually of the hammer, because they've already set up that it's so powerful, and then it doesn't work on this fragment of the Allspark. It's like, oh, holy shit, that should have worked. We're all expecting it to work.
Well, and we haven't seen him thus far use it as a hammer. He's used it as a connection to, like, again, he stormed from the X-Men. He's like, call down the lightning.
Yeah, exactly.
Free this fragment from this train. Wind and lightning, I beseech thee.
And when that doesn't work,
yeah. And like you said, it immediately doesn't work, and it underscores that, like, we don't know the mystical properties of this Magnus hammer, but we know that it doesn't work here.
Right. Jazz, hand me my 9-iron. So while this is all unfolding, we're watching kind of Starscream drooling from up on high, excited that all his enemies are about to kill each other. Like, he's seeing all these he thinks he's still moving the chess pieces, and he's watching them all come into place. He's rigged this train to explode. He's set the trap. The Autobots are here. Megatron's here. He's having a heyday. He's like, finally, this one's gonna work.
Yeah, he's just salivating. He's like, this day just keeps getting better and better.
Yeah. So yeah, like our Autobots, our gang that we're introduced to, are back on the scene. In this awesome move, Bumblebee launches off the freeway interchange, Flip transforms, setting down his passenger, right on top of the fragment. Like, it's this very quick, like, doom, 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 and she's right where she needs to be. She tries her key on it, and the key does light up and starts pulling out the fragment, kind of like Luke's lightsaber in the beginning of Empire Strikes Back. There's just like a little wiggle of the fragment, as if the Force is working. Yeah. And then Prowl comes in, and the question is, can I hack the rest of this train off? And the answer is, sure I can. So he slices. I just couldn't help myself.
Oh, it's good. It's good.
He slices the passenger portion of the train. So we still have an exploding train we got to worry about, but at least the humans are safe. And then they bring the train to this nail-biting halt. Everyone is involved. Every bulkhead's back there. Everyone's pulling on this train to get it to stop. And they do. It's very harrowing, but they do seize the fragment, and Optimus turns it over to Ultra Magnus, who is just pissed that Optimus is there, right? Like, what is wrong with this guy? He's just, he finally gets the thing. Optimus helps him. He's just like, oh, what are you doing here?
Yeah. Oh, and I want to go back just a half a step also, because, like, you get so Bumblebee even calls it out when he jumps off the train. He's like,
now that's what I call teamwork.
And this is terrific leadership on Optimus's part. I think, like, one of my favorite things of this Optimus, because I mean, I've spent more time with him, it's like the way that he gives orders, the way he's just like, Bumblebee and you get up on the train, use the key. Prowl, save the people. Hey, Bulkhead, you and Ratchet go over here and stop the train. It's like, he's a great leader in that, like, he knows everybody's strengths and how to utilize them and to give his people the right motivation. He's a terrific leader, and I love how we end on this reaction from Fanzone, because he's just like,
and nothing got blown up.
That's a first, that kind of thing. So kind of cool there. But then, yeah, like you said, we're back to this thing where like I'm just like writing in all caps. It's just like,
what are you doing here, Optimus Prime?
And like,
where are the Decepticons?
It's like, again, Ultra Magnus does not believe Optimus Prime at this point, and it is so frustrating and aggravating at being in the audience watching that.
Yeah. Actually, and I just really want to quickly go back to what you were saying about Optimus giving orders. Does this ending not give you such big vibes of the end of the first Avengers movie? Where like God, Captain America is like, up on the thing, and like, telling him all exactly where to go, doing what he does best. And then you have Optimus is doing the same thing. He's wearing the red, white, and blue.
Yeah.
And then to the effect of like getting a little bit ahead here, then when they finally do catch Starscream, they bolt his mouth up just like Loki.
Yeah.
Like there was I was just like, this is just like shot for shot the Avengers movie. And this is coming off too earlier in season 1 when we have that Bumblebee scene when he does the whole like Iron Man taking the nuke up to the wormhole scene. It's just like, how many people were watching this before they made Avengers?
Yeah, I don't want to say Joss Whedon was a TFA watcher, but I'm pretty sure he watched TFA.
Yeah, I'll say it. Let's just put it out there.
Pretty sure.
We can say Joss Whedon stuff. No one's going to come after us.
Yeah.
We're fine now.
Notorious asshole. Joss Whedon, sure.
Hey, whoa, hey.
So this day could not get any worse. It goes from like it can't get any better for Starscream to it can't get any worse for Optimus and the Autobots.
Yeah, so you have Ultra Magnus and he's sitting there, where are the Decepticons? And then we have one falling from the sky, luckily enough. I think the metaphor here is really great because it takes a Decepticon blasting him the fuck in the face for Ultra Magnus to be like, oh, the Decepticons are back. This is such like, this is a literal punch in the face.
And so, yeah, so like Sentinel over Magnus's shoulder is like, what the hell is that? And right. and it kind of reminds you that Sentinel may not have seen a Decepticon before. Right. He literally doesn't even know what it looks like.
Yeah, in fact, Optimus says,
oh, that's right. You've never seen one up close. It's called a Decepticon.
Such a great smarmy line from Optimus. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so everything else goes down. This is where Starscream gets up because, as we know, he's immortal. He uses his null rays and it's like this huge blast that takes out Ultra Magnus.
Yeah.
Very intense scene. But yeah, this is like, hey, the Decepticons are back. You can't get more up close and personal than getting shot in the face by one.
Right.
So finally, after all this, after this great battle, it takes a lot to take Starscream down. I don't know if Starscream was always this strong, but it takes like, Bumblebee and Ratchet crossing the streams and Bulkhead super punch. Like they throw everything they have at this guy, and he's just like walking out of town, ignoring it.
Right. Well, and yeah, Starscream is just nonplussed at this point. It's like, and I wonder if the more Allspark fragments he collects, the more powerful he becomes, perhaps. But like he's doing this walks away from explosion type thing. Like he doesn't even like quicken his pace at all. He's just taking like a leisurely walk as all of these Autobots are just throwing everything at him, and it just doesn't do anything, and he's just mowing these people down. And it comes down to
Ultra Magnus is down and the Decepticon is getting away. What's our next move, Sentinel?
Right. And that's where turns really into the Battle of New York from Avengers, right? Optimus is forced to step up. He does a great job. They give Starscream the Loki treatment, right? They bolt his mouth shut. They escort him out of the city. And finally, Ultra Magnus is forced to admit that A, there's Decepticons in existence, and B, that there's some merit left in Optimus. The fragments of the Allspark are real. There's proof of the Allspark again, and Optimus has some of the fragments of what made him a great leader back in the day. Ultra Magnus has to see that at this point. And he does. He agrees to let the Autobots stay on Earth. And he even throws in some stasis cuffs as a consolation prize.
Yeah, he's like, you're going to need these for later.
Gives them a whole crate.
Whole crate of them, and it's like, what kinky shit are you into? Good Lord. But you also see a reprise of the Allspark chest, you know, the big Matrix looking thing earlier. And it's interesting now. I feel like we've established the overarching storyline for this season, where I would imagine this is going to continue. This cycle is going to continue, where they're going to look for and find Allspark fragments to put into this chest, which I think is interesting. I kind of took it more spiritually, that like the energy was dispersed. But turns out, no, the crystal just exploded and there are shards everywhere. Those are kind of two different things. So it feels to me like the thrust of the narrative now is, well, we have to get all the shards and crystals back and put it back into this chest, and stasis cuff a bunch of fools while we're at it. Yeah.
Well, I think you know, for the ending of season 1, it's a lot more like a metaphorical thing at that moment. It's kind of this, you know, sort of beautiful ending. And now we need to get to, you know, the Death Star exploded. Now we got to, you know, now the Ewoks have to pick up the rubble, right? Like now we're seeing like some actual change coming out of this. So with that, now, as you were saying, we have a plot for this season. We have collecting Allspark fragments and Decepticons as their new deal. With that, the Elite Guard finally depart Earth. And that'd be a great place. Again, a great place to end the episode, but that's not what Transformers Animated does. It cuts back to Decepticon HQ, where Megatron drops this bomb on everybody. He orders Blitzwing and Lugnut to contact, quote, their double agent on Cybertron.
Oof.
And it seems that everything's just going to Megatron's plan.
Yeah, he's like, Cybertron is within my grasp. We're going to conquer it from within. Yeah. And that's the thing that, for me, first-time watcher, I don't know who it is. I don't know what's going to happen. And there is a part of me that, like, yeah, again, please don't spoil me on Twitter, by the way. But like this is what the audience is here for. For me, like having these surprises in real time. So it's like that. I was like, you know, slack-jawed, dumbstruck. I was just like, oh my God, double agent. And I'm like, oh my God, is it fucking double dealer? Oh my God, is it punch counter punch? My counterpart is nearby, real nearby. Yeah. You know, one of those kinds
if
of
you know what I mean.
And I think that you do. Oh my gosh. But but I would imagine in TFA fashion, and I don't want to necessarily set myself up for expectations needlessly, but it's probably something that's going to be a real surprise. It'd be like, oh, that's what we're doing. That's cool, because that's what TFA has done so far, and I haven't been disappointed. So I'm really eager to see this next motion of the plot continue.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah,
stuff.
Me too. I'll just say that.
All right. Well, so that is the episode, and before we get out of here, we got a couple last bit of things to do. Let's transition to Mike's G1 score.
Woohoo!
And this one is pretty easy and not as the thing that I like about my G1 score is how unscientific it is. I am going to in the spirit, as it were, of Starscream's Ghost, I'm going to give this a G1 rating of 6.66 because he's the devil. He's the devil.
I love it. Yes.
And all that.
That's a big score coming off your 0.0 that you gave last time.
big swing. I mean, again, it's undead Starscream. It's immortal Starscream. We're even making jokes and comments about it being the ghost of Starscream. So I mean, yeah, I'm being kitschy with the 6.66, but
no, I love it.
Still, that's. I mean, if I weren't being kitschy, I would still say it'd be at least 5 because it's because of the enormity of the trope.
Yeah, it's very clear that they're referencing Starscream's ghost, and they do it multiple times. You know, it's not just like a quick hidden Easter egg. They're like beating you over the head with it.
So, with that, let's take a quick dive into the mailbag.
Mail time. Mail time. Mail time. Mail time. Mail time.
The mail's here. Here's the mail that never fails. It makes me want to wag my tail. When it comes, I want a whale mail.
And first, let's go to Twitter, and we were talking earlier about your Ultra Magnus toys, and I saw this tweet from our buddy Matthew Barbario, and he's like, well, while listening to the newest Two Mikes Too Furious, I was playing the game Forza Horizon 3. I was able to get this big armored truck. In looking through the skins, I found Ultra Magnus ! And it was not too long after the discussion about his alt mode. So he's listening to the podcast playing Forza Horizon 3, and this skin for this truck is like, I mean, I don't know anything about Forza Horizon 3, but like this skin is legit. Like it's in the right colors. It's got the Autobot symbol on the front. It even says Elite Guard on the grill. And even across the top of the windscreen, it says Ultra Magnus on it. So it is very specifically Ultra Magnus themed.
So I came across this when I saw this tweet. It was very early in the morning. I probably shouldn't have been awake yet. And I literally looked at my phone and I saw the picture that he posted, and I was like, oh, cool. Yeah, it's a truck that kind of looks like Ultra Magnus. I was like, no, it is. If you zoom in, yeah, it actually is Ultra Magnus from this show. Like it's referencing the Elite Guard. That's so cool.
That's wild. What I don't know is the age of that Forza Horizon 3 game. It's like, is it from like 2008, 2009-ish?
I don't think it's from them, but I think it's closer to then than it is to today. Let me just look it up really quick. Forza Horizon 3 is a 2016 racing game.
Holy smokes. Wow.
So this, like 9 years after, or like 8 years after this, apparently they did a skin for it.
Square in the middle. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Huh. We continue on Twitter, and again, you can find us at 2 Mikes Too Furious. And our good buddy Joebot responded to our previous episode, not our previous episode, Ultra Magnus, episode 1. Quote unquote, race car stripes and a bitchin' visor, end quote, should be the quote Jazz uses on his dating profile. I'm digging the new episode. Great job, guys.
Yeah, I believe that's a quote from you, Mikey. That was a winner.
Yeah, I love it, and glad to see that Joe has picked back up the podcast again. Joebot, of course, a member of Mike and the Earth Sparkles. One of these times, eventually, over on Mike Seibert Radio, my other podcast, we'll finish up our discussion of season 1 of Transformers Earthspark. But yeah, it's great hearing from that dude, and it feels like the more people come back and respond, the more it feels like we back, baby. that kind of thing.
Oh, it's so good. Yeah, I mean, we took our hiatus, so it's like, are people gonna pick us back up again? And yeah, they're coming out of the woodwork just like the Decepticons.
Exactly. Where are these fans? So let me dip into the mailbag and go to the YouTube comments, which again is kind of like one of the more centralized hubs for commentary on the episodes. And we go back to our friend Matthew Barbario of the Ultra Magnus episode, season 2, episode 1. Another great episode this week! ! I love this episode of TFA, meaning the Elite Guard. I actually watched this episode right after rewatching the finale in preparation for those podcast episodes because I couldn't help myself. I never thought about how Ultra Magnus was likely feeling towards Optimus and that he was supposed to be in Sentinel's position. So that's going to be something I pay attention to going forward. And I just got to say it, Sentinel sucks.
That was a real rose and a thorn for me. Both I love what you said and I hate your favorite character.
He continues. There are a few characters in this series I don't like, and he is one. Wait for it.
Ooh.
Gird your loins.
Wow.
I prefer Professor Penny Princess over him! ! But he did give us a very memorable scene in an upcoming episode, so he does get some positivity points there. I'm sure he's referring to his encounter with the headmaster. Also, I always feel so bad for Sari in the end of the episode. Her entire world is just starting to crash down around her. Her dad is missing. She just lost control of failing Sumdac systems, and now she just found out she doesn't even exist. That's just awful, especially for an 8-year-old.
Yeah, brutal. Yeah, seeing Sari through this lens, it's really adding some gravity to how bad things are going at the start of this season.
Absolutely. And the last bit of mailbag feedback for this episode, this is kind of like a reverse shout out / pat on the back thing. I don't know if you saw, but like once in future guest Lala Lita, the #1 Alita 1 stan in all of the universe, was on Commodin Cam, their channel, talking about ranking all of the Alita 1 iterations, and gave us a very nice shout out during that podcast, and talked about her thoughts on TFA's take on Alita 1, but she totally name dropped us and talked about having a great time on our show. But part of the reason why this is kind of like a self-serving shout out as well, who likes that tweet? None other than Transformer scribe, notorious James Roberts.
That's so cool.
And that just blew me away to the point where I'm having people text me and message me, congratulations on the James Roberts mention. And I'm like, first of all, it's Lita's tweet. He likes Lita. He likes Lita's tweets. I think it's a coincidence that we just happen to be mentioned in there. Like, I don't know what Mr. Roberts' relationship to TFA, if he's even seen it, and I don't know if he's checked out our podcast or not. But hey, if you have, James Roberts, you're welcome to come on the show anytime you like.
I'm just going to go about my day, assuming he is a listener of the show. I think that's just what I need in my life right now. That little bit of a boost.
I would imagine that he sits listening to podcasts, drinking a I'm sure, delicious, savory tea. He's just like, oh, this is so delightfully American.
These two fucking chodes.
Yeah, exactly. Goes back to sipping tea. Oh my gosh, James Roberts is awesome. So
we love you, James Roberts. Sorry about Mike's impression of you just now.
Exactly.
Don't take it out on me, Michael Andrews. I'm the cool one. Right. Don't forget about the mouthy Mike.
Mouthy Mike.
I'm the cool Mike.
Mouthy Mike and cool Mike. Good Lord. You got put like that Starscream Loki thing for my smart mouth, it would seem.
Yeah, for sure. Bolted shut.
Oh man! So before we get out of here, you know what time it is. We couldn't leave this place without dimming the lights and setting the mood. It is time, my friends, for the Michael Andrews preview haiku, a preku, if you will. And this is a big one. I cannot wait.
Yes. Oh yeah. Here we go. Ba-bum-bum. Of rivets and rust, old voices emerge anew. Things start to get weird.
I love
Jazz
it.
Chucks.
Jazz Chucks. Possibly for the last time for a while. I hope our friends in the Elite Guard are okay and nothing terrible happens to any of them.
Yeah, we've just gotten attached to him now, and they're already
exactly. Leaving. Except for that Sentinel guy, that dude can get fucked right in his ear.
No comments.
Yeah. There you go. So yeah, that's it. Thanks for hanging out with us, and again, if you see me at TFCon in March, be sure and say hi, and let's have some pizza.
Yes, have some pizza.
I don't know how to end these things anymore.
Well, you landed it. Beautiful.
Cool. Want to be a guest on the show? Send us an email to mikes2furious@gmail.com. Interact with us on social media. You can follow 2mikes2furious on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at 2mikes2furious.
When I was a young boy, my father took me into the city to see a marching band. He said, son, when you grow up, would you be the savior of the broken, the beaten, and the damned? He said, will you defeat them, your demons, and all the non-believers, the plans that they have made? Because one day I'll leave you a phantom to lead you in the summer to join the Black Parade.
You couldn't lead a parade. Make sure he's offline this time.
His spark chamber is empty. His life force has been extinguished.
Dump that piece of traitorous garbage where it belongs.
Sometimes I get the feeling she's watching over me, and other times I feel like I should go. And through it all, the rise and fall, the bodies in the streets, and when you're gone, we want you all to know we'll carry on, we'll carry on. And though the odds said I can't believe me, your memory will carry on, you'll carry on. And tell what I can't contain it, the answer won't explain it.
I think I need another approach.